So money's a big deal because it reveals how we think about who God is, what he's done, who we are in light of it, and how he's calling us to live. It's just a big deal. Now, here's the thing about this text. I think salvation is on the line because the language that the Master uses for those who are faithful is much language like we would expect to hear Jesus ushering us into heaven. And the language he uses for the unfaithful servant is language we would expect him to use as someone who's being sent to hell, where there's darkness and weeping and gnashing of teeth, because he was lazy and slothful and unfaithful in his stewardship. Here's what I want you to see about these three truths. Not only are they marks of a faithful steward, they're truisms in and of themselves, whether or not you believe them to be true. Okay, that's a big deal. So the mark of a faithful steward is that they believe God owns everything. But reality is, God owns everything, whether you believe it or not. The mark of a faithful steward is that they believe they've been given the responsibility to steward all that God has graciously given them. But reality is, God has called you to steward all he's graciously given you, whether you believe that or not to be true. The faithful steward believes that there will be a reckoning. There will be a settling of accounts. He will be held accountable. She will be held accountable for how they have stewarded all God's given them. But reality is, they'll be held accountable for all God's given them to steward, whether they believe it to be true or not. So this sermon isn't an attempt to get you to believe God owns everything, so you should steward it well. This sermon is simply standing here with the attempt to wake you up to the reality that God does own everything. He has called you to steward it, and there will be a day of reckoning. So this isn't like my attempt to get you to feel guilty and squeeze out a few more bucks to put in the plate as it goes by. Not in the slightest. This is a wake-up call to you to either remind you or instruct you for the first time that you have nothing that has not come from the hand of God. And there is wildly high expectations for how you steward what he's given you, beyond what you could even comprehend. So this isn't a sermon on give 10% it will make you feel guilty. This is how are you handling the 100% God's given you. This isn't, hey, give a little more so we can have more money to play with as the elders. This is, God has called every one of us to steward faithfully that which he's given. So the question is not, am I going to be a steward? The question is always and only, will I be a faithful steward or a foolish steward? That's the conversation on the table right now, of which your money is a gigantic portion of what you've been given to steward.